Hi, welcome back to my podcast. This is my Obsidian Mirror podcast, and my name is Cynthia. I'm a card reader and sort of just personal hedge witch or kitchen witch practitioner. And I have here this podcast on, in addition to my tarot card channel, where I do live readings, or not live readings, but uploaded readings. And today I've started this podcast recently. I think this is the 4th installment to coincide with the cycles of the moon, where I do just a brief gaze into the Obsidian Mirror and then share what I've channeled through that gaze. And so I'll just go ahead and get into what I saw today for the first quarter moon. So the first image that came through was frog, and it was very prominently featured the face of the frog, the eyes, and then the mouth as it sort of comes forward from the plane of the frog's face. And so right away I could recognize that this is sort of a continuing theme, and what I've been finding so lovely and wonderful about this podcast and these scrying sessions so far is that there's a thread that seems to be continuing through them, which makes sense. But they're coming out in a really wonderful way. So I really invite you, if you like this work at all, to go back, or at least from the point that you started listening, to notice the themes that run through on a thread. I'm seeing a silver thread, and silver threads have meaning and significance and spirituality. Regardless, anyways, the first image I saw was a frog, and then coming out of the frog's mouth opened, and coming out of the frog's mouth was an iguana. Again, a theme that carried through from the last scrying session I did for the new moon. So then the iguana morphed into an owl, which was again a continued theme. The iguana and the owl were both in the last one, as was the mouth of a fish, this time the mouth of the frog, which is more of an amphibian, but it again speaks to the evolution that came through in the new moon reading, is now carrying through on this thread into this one. What's interesting is that the owl in the new moon reading was gliding towards us, a very wise, mature adult owl. In this case, the face of the iguana morphed into an owl, but it was an owl on the ground, a chick, a fledge that has left the nest and is now on the ground learning to fly. And that's quite a vulnerable time for a owl chick, right, when it's first leaving the nest. And so the vulnerability was being emphasized there, that this owl is a chick. It's not the mature owl that was flying towards us in the previous new moon gaze. And that is specifically something that I felt I was being shown and needed to make sure I mentioned in sharing this. Then there was a period of quiet, and then the next thing I saw was a steel trap. And if you think of a steel trap, there's an expression in English, mind like a steel trap. And then there's also kind of the cruelty involved with steel traps in terms of hunting. They've been banned in the US, I think, for the most part, although people may still use them illegally. I think that's a part of a poaching practice, to still use a steel trap, but it's a very cruel way to trap an animal. They're horrible to imagine. And so the steel trap image that came through wasn't a positive image to see, and it had some kind of a sting or a negative tone to it, right? Like a caution or a warning or something. I was being shown like this is a negative element coming through here, this steel trap. Then the next thing I saw was a shape of light coming through that kept looking either like a puzzle piece or like the map of Palestine, and then it would turn into a map of Texas, and then morph back into a puzzle piece, Palestine, Texas. Like it was this shape of light that kept shifting and either looking like a geographical location or a piece of a puzzle. And it wasn't so much the location that it was wanting me to understand, although the fact that Palestine came through the first scrying session that I did in a way that really humbled me and overwhelmed me right from the beginning, and kind of made me aware of the responsibility that I have in being careful when I channel messages. And part of my goal in these channeled messages is to try to refrain from interpreting what I think they mean for you and allowing you to take the archetypes that come through and apply them to your own situation. So back to this map, shifting back and forth between a map and a puzzle piece, more so what it was showing me was not so much specifically about Palestine or Texas, although those are the two locations that kept showing up. So there's probably meaning behind them. For sure, in the world of politics and power and oppression, those two locations in the world have been kind of flashpoints, right? Or beyond flashpoints. You could even consider them centers of violence of different types. But what it was also showing me was that the way the light was shifting to become like a puzzle, then a location, then another location, then back to the puzzle, was more, the message was, with just a slight shift and a trick of the light, things can look very differently. So that can also allude to, even though this was sunlight, it can allude to the lunar quality of light that can be illusory in the tarot, right? Or that can create tricks of the mind. So one little shift of light, one little trick of the light, and your whole perspective can change. One little turn of the prism in the sunlight can create an entirely different rainbow or spectrum of color. So that was the message that was coming through there about that life shifting shapes. Then the shapes that came through after that went away was the shape of ghost pipe, which is a plant that is quite a mystical plant that has a long history of medicinal and spiritual use. It's a rare plant, and it's a vulnerable plant, and it has been over-harvested by overeager herbalists who haven't understood the quality of needing to be more in a harmonious relationship with wildcrafting plants. And so I hesitated to bring up that ghost pipe even showed up here. And what I really want to say before going any further is, when you learn, if you don't know what ghost pipe is and you decide to look it up after this reading, ghost pipe should not be harvested right now. Leave it and appreciate it in its environment. And if you want to take its medicine or interact with it in any way, I recommend just sitting with it for a while. It's a great opportunity when you see a stand of it to sit with it. Just meditate with it and appreciate it where it is and leave it alone. Don't harvest it. Don't make a tincture. Don't even touch it because it bruises very easily. So just admire it. That's what I'm asking as an herbalist, and I think one of the messages we need to understand about a plant like ghost pipe. But regardless, ghost pipe came through very visibly, and I strongly recommend that you look into the spiritual and medicinal qualities of ghost pipe. There's a message for you. And it has to do with the dark. A lot of these mirror scrying sessions through the Obsidian Mirror have been the dark, the unseen, the hidden, the underworld, the shadow. And ghost pipe is a plant like that. It lacks chlorophyll. It's also been called corpse plant, but it's very beautiful, and it has qualities of plants that we know and love and think of often, and then also qualities that are not so typical. So it's just a really shape-shifting energy almost. So then the ghost pipe, I saw it went from a stand of ghost pipe to two ghost pipes right next to one another. And then those ghost pipes morphed into two cobras that were being almost like manipulated by a snake charmer. But what the snake charmer wasn't realizing was that these two cobras were about to strike, and he was about to be bested by his snakes that he had held captive. So the two cobras is a personal sigil for me that I use as my own personal sigil, and you can see it in the bottom right corner of this video. That's my sigil that I have a personal relationship with. So the two plant ghost pipes morphed into these two white cobras, which represent my personal sigil. And the cobra sigil that I designed for myself is about taking painful, wounding, poisonous experiences in life and turning them into wisdom and healing, like the poison plants can do for us. And a cobra medicine is a plant like that, or I mean a medicine like that. A cobra has a poisonous venom, but a cobra is also extremely powerful medicine. So those are the two cobras. Then I saw those cobras turn into a keyhole. Then it showed the keyhole turning on its side. So rather than you putting a key in the lock and turning the keyhole itself shifted. And it again was going back to the way that light shifted into a puzzle piece. So it has something to do with a shift of the eye, a trick of the eye, or a shift of light and a shift in perspective can change the entire face of your reality. So there was a keyhole facing this way. Now the keyhole is on its side itself. And then it went back again to the cobras and the cobra sigil. And emphasized again the two white cobras and that cobra sigil. I feel like there was one last thing that I didn't write down in my notes that I needed to remember to say here. And now I'm sitting here recording this and I can't remember what it was. If it does come through, I'll put it in a comment and pin it to the comments. It seemed important, and I remember thinking I don't want to forget that. It was an important visual that again kind of tied things together in this really beautiful way. And I can't think what it is now. So I will do it in a pinned comment probably, because I know it's going to come back to me. Let me just glance over here. Was there something that could trigger my memory? Yeah, I can't think of it. So anyways, now I'll go into the card portion, because this is a little bit longer of a channeled gaze or scrying session than previously. So now I'll just pull a few cards to tie it together. Any tarot messages to help tie together the archetypes we saw in this Obsidian Mirror. I thought the steel trap was quite interesting. A really interesting, unexpected image to come through, but a really powerful one. And so if you think about the shifting perspective that kept being emphasized, but then that saying of mind like a steel trap, it might be cautioning. But there was also the kind of the viperfish that came through in the last reading has jaws like a steel trap. So that's really interesting. I'm loving how these themes are coming through and evolving as time passes and the cycle of the moon shifts. It's just really cool to watch how it comes together. Yeah, interesting. So I mentioned the cobra sigil, meaning kind of taking the power of poison and turning it to use it for healing, or the shift or tricks of the light and perspective and tricks of the eye. So here we have the three tarot cards that I pulled to kind of indicate past, present, future, or tying these threads together is the Temperance card, the Page of Wands, and the Seven of Cups. So the Seven of Cups to me is that warning. It's that steel trap or the poison of the cobra. The warning about the owl chick being on the ground versus gliding in flight, right? So there's something about the energy that was present that came through that reading that has a warning with it, but that if you take that messages that have come through, which are coming through like a page of, well, they are coming through as a Page of Wands. That's the next card, is the Page of Wands. That to me speaks to the light and the shifting light and the young light, and the fact that there can be tricks of the light with something like a Page of Wands. And then ultimately tying these two cards together is the Temperance card. And the Temperance card speaks to spiritual alchemy in the tarot. It's a card that represents spiritual alchemy and healing on an alchemical level, healing the elements within you, and the alchemy of the vein of gold within you emerging from lead, right? That's spiritual alchemy. So the wounds of your past emerging into an alchemical spiritual growth that empowers you ultimately, something like that. So those are the tarot messages, and then I'll just pull here maybe one or two text cards, and we'll call this good for this first quarter moon gaze and scrying session. Any text from my deck that I designed, the Thimbleberry deck. Climb the burning ladder. So this has to do with that shifting light again, the Page of Wands light that's coming through here, and the challenges that it's possibly going to be presenting. Climbing the burning ladder means being willing to go through the hard work, or being like a phoenix, being willing to be purified by fire, being willing to go through the challenges that are facing you and turning those into wisdom and growth. So not being like, I don't know, I want to refrain from trying to interpret too much. I'll pull one more card here. Inject chaos into the situation. Dragon energy is needed to end stagnation. So stagnating in the Seven of Cups, the steel trap, the non-movement or the rigidity of a steel trap, and being willing to embrace and alchemize again the shifting light, the shifting perspective. So I'll leave it there. I'll refrain from doing any further interpreting. I hope there are messages in this for you. I know something is going to come through after it was floral. I feel like there might have been a floral or a plant message that came through in addition to ghost pipe, is what it feels like. It's weird that I can't remember. It's almost like it was a long time ago, even though it was only right before this reading. It's strange. But regardless, thank you for being here. I just uploaded a love reading as well, which had a lot of really catalytic energy, so there might be some messages in there for you as well. Take good care. I'm sending you my love and respect, and enjoy this emerging spring energy that's upon us.